and the warmest of welcomes to Monday Night Live with me, Boaty, coming live into your eyes and ears direct from Windy Bottom here in the Peak District National Park, where I'm delighted to report it is somewhat cooler than it has been of late, and that's a relief. But I'm delighted to be here with you. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you because I'm delighted to report. Turn the volume down, you fat idiot. God, it's not difficult, is it? It's not difficult, and yet. Anyway, how are you, darlings? How was your weekend? I want to hear all of your news, everything that you've been up to. Oh, God, what did I say I was going to talk about today? Oh, God, I told you I'd forget. Oh, yeah, that was it. Right. I'm older. Features. Right. Obviously, I want to know what you've been eating. That goes without saying. I want to know about things that have very nearly but not quite fallen on your head. If you've hooked up in any way, shape or form or come across or had anything to do with the famous over the weekend, I would like to know about that. And one of the features that I totally thought of myself and definitely didn't nick off Lisa Tarbuck is I am old enough to remember ... What are you old enough to remember that that kind of just isn't a thing in the current day and age? But other than that, it's Monday night, and I thought I'd throw things over to you a bit, perhaps a little bit more than usual. So if there is anything that you would like to talk about or you would like us all to discuss, then do shout out. And on that subject, I'm going to crack on with some comments and see who I've got to say hello to. Joe is here, Cars with JC. Lovely. Good evening, all. Good evening, Joe. Hello, sir, says Barry. Hope you're not too knackered from your drive. No, not at all. I feel quite relaxed, actually. I was actually home a lot earlier than usual tonight, so it's been quite an unusually chilled out evening. It's probably going to be my last, well, no, it's not going to be my last chilled out evening. That would be very wrong to say. I'm hoping that my Mondays are going to be extremely chilled out. I'm just not going to be chilling out here at Windy Bum on a Monday, or at least that is the plan. I plan to be chilling out in different places. And I forgot, oh God, well, we can come on to that later, can't we? Pingu Concord is with us. What's up, Count Botula? I see why you wanted that 416. From the advert, it looks like a very good buy. Yeah, I didn't look at the advert in much depth, Pingu, to be completely honest. This one was Mustard's project, or whatever you want to call it, and he dealt with all of it. I had a very quick peek. I agree. It looked and sounded like exactly the sort of thing that that we wanted to be all over. So today has been something of a disappointment and a bit of an expensive day because I've done a fair bit of money in fuel. But more importantly, it's been a wasted Mustard and Boaty day where we've spent an entire day, more than an entire working day. And it's been fruitless, unfortunately. But, well, these things happen. You know, you could argue that some things could have been done differently. But, yeah, the car wasn't up to snuff in various ways. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't a viable option for us. But, hey-ho, no point in crying over spilt milk. There are other cars coming this week, possibly quite a few, and the first one will be arriving tomorrow. And these are not random gambles. These are known quantities that we're comfortable with and safe with and have knowledge of. So, yeah, been a bit of a pants day, in all honesty, but these things happen, not the end of the world. Barry says, I also hope our foot friend keeps his distance. Well, I have helped him to keep his distance. I banned him. Good quiz by Simon, says Joe. And sorry, good quiz by Simon, says Barry. How are you all? Pingu says, could your PAs today be linked to your dehydration? That could be one of the factors. To be honest, I think it's more mental. I'm quite upset about Joe at the moment, and it's having a bit of an effect on me for various reasons. I'm partly because of what it is, and just sheer empathy, and also because it's firing some triggers over a situation that happened before. So I think those are probably bigger factors, but yeah, dehydration could be part of it. Rover Joe is here. Rover Joe, the lovely Rover Joe. We like Rover Joe, don't we? How are you, sir? You first-class degree earning, hard-working, splendid chap, you. With a wonderful can-do attitude. I'm very fond of Joe. I'm very fond of all of you. Yeah, you all mean the world to me, quite honestly. Ashley is with us, says, good evening all. Pingu has a question. Oh, now, sit up straight and we'll get to this. Has Wetleg failed her MOT yet? No. I can collect her at the end of this month. No, she still hasn't gone in for MOT. I'll get round to that in the next couple of days. I've got a bit of a queue of cars to sort out in that regard. So I really must crack on with that. I'm hoping to have a bit more of a, well, no, hope. You don't hope to have a productive week. That's nonsense. You plan to have a productive week and you make it happen. So that's what I'm planning to do. I'm going to ease up a bit on the videos this week. I was quietly rather pleased with the Jag video, and I think that's going to be a steady burner. So I'm going to ease up on the videos and kind of leave the Jag video there to do a bit of work. And now that the weather is going to be cooling off, I plan to be playing about with cars a lot more this week, and get up to speed on work that needs doing, MOT, so on and so forth. And also there's going to be stuff going on with M&BDC, so I'll probably have at least one day, possibly two, at the yard playing with those cars as well as my own. I've been in bed ill over the weekend. I'm sorry to hear that, Barry. Getting better now. I'm delighted to hear that. Well done. Bad Book says, good evening all. And Skick is here and says, love thy neighbour, which is possibly a reference to my neighbour, or possibly a reference to the, was it 1970s sitcom? I think it was. Jaden, Everything Car says, I saw a video of a road being flooded with red wine, and there was a silver Rover 25 in the background. Have you been up to something, Boaty? No, nothing to do with me. I would be nowhere near anything that was flooded with red wine because I am allergic to the stuff. So I can assure you I wouldn't be anywhere near it. Jimmy Quinn is what I say. Good evening, Boaty. Good evening to you, Jimmy. We've got an I'm old enough to remember dial-up internet, and this is coming from Barry, and mobile phones that could only send text. Well, I don't remember mobile phones that could only send text. They could make phone calls as well. I wasn't aware of. I mean, a mobile phone that only sent text wouldn't be a mobile phone. Or do you mean that it could only send text and make calls, and that was the only extraneous function it could have? I do remember sending my first text, and gosh, that would have been a long time ago. It would have been. I was quite early into mobile phones, not because I thought, I mean, to be honest with you here, not because I appreciated the functionality or anything, just because it was a status symbol. And I was very stupid in my 20s and 30s, and I thought status symbols were important. Obviously now I think they're a nonsense. I've grown up. But at the time I thought they were important. So designer names, yes. Rolex watch, yes. Ferrari, yes. All of that nonsense. And having a mobile phone was part of that. Purely and simply a status symbol. I mean, they'd been out for a long time before I found them in any way useful or essential. But hey ho. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, dial-up internet. Well, who remembers dial-up internet? There's a thing. Yeah, you had a choice. You could talk on the phone or you could talk to the internet. God, 56k modem and all of that. Yeah, I was posh. I had an extra phone line put in because I couldn't be asked with choosing between phone or. But yes, my God, the dial-up internet. And here's one that I remember, that I'm old enough to remember: computer games where you had your computer and then you had a separate tape machine recorder, like it was just a cassette recorder basically. And your games came on a cassette, like an audio cassette, and to load them you had to put them into the old machine and press play. And so if you wanted to play Manic Miner on your Commodore 64, it took about 40 minutes to load the bloody game up, and it was and of course, at the time, it's tremendously exciting and not at all inconvenient, which seems ridiculous now, doesn't it? Here's an interesting discussion point from Pingu. Car collecting, is it a disease? Discuss. Car collecting, is it a disease? Discuss. Yeah, interesting. What's your opinion on that one, guys? I'll throw that one straight out to you. There's a nice green Rover 25 for sale, says Joe, and if it's the one I'm thinking of, we are collecting it next month. Bad Book says, I'm old enough to remember the Rag and Bone Man on a horse and cart. Steptoe and Son sequel. If the horse had a wee outside my grand's house, she would swill the road down with domestos and buckets of water. Joe is just looking at trying to find some parts for the Honda at the moment. How are you? I'm absolutely grand, Joe. Thanks for asking. Hope you find what you're looking for. The Jag video was fantastic, says Joe. Well, that's exceedingly kind of you, Joe. And thanks also to anybody else who has left a flattering comment or a nice comment or anything. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I rather like making videos with Steve. I think he's rather good on camera. So hopefully there will be plenty more to come, unless he decides that, sod it, I'm good at this, I'm going to start my own channel. Why should I just appear on his, getting him views? We're talking about doing another video on Luigi, the little Fiat 500, maybe with a specific road trip or something. A bit more playing with the TVR, going a little bit more in depth on that one. And of course, there's the Alpha Spider that I'm yet to have a play with. So yeah, should be plenty more. Barry says, I know you like trains. I certainly do. Have you ever been to Peak Rail or Ecclesbourne Valley Railway? I have been to them both, Barry, many times. Yeah, absolutely. Not a million miles from each other. For those who don't know, Peak Rail is a heritage railway, and it's on the old line that was Bakewell through to Buxton. Although, you know, ultimately it was a line that connected kind of, I can't remember exactly. I think it was Birmingham and Manchester. And it was another of the lines that suffered at the hands of Dr. Beeching. A very beautiful line. And part of the line has now been converted into something called the Monsall Trail, which some of you, many of you may be very familiar with. I would thoroughly recommend it as a nice walk or bicycle ride. It's jolly scenic. It's obviously flat. The tunnels are all open now, so you can walk through the tunnels. There are various information speaky things along the way. And Hassop Station, which is now a cafe and does bicycle hire and whatnot, does a splendid range of meals. So that's excellent. So access that anywhere you like from Bakewell, and that runs right down to Millersdale. But Peak Rail is the section of railway from kind of Darlydale, or might be Two Dales actually. Well, it's Roseley. To be fair, it's Roseley. And Peak Rail runs from Roseley, and it used to be to just short of Matlock Station, and now it actually runs fully into Matlock Station to its own platform. It's jolly good. Like most of the heritage railways, they do special events, so on and so on and so on. And if you're into your trains, absolutely well worth a bit of a look. And then Ecclesbourne Valley Railway, that is based in Wirksworth, and that is the old Duffield line. So that was a branch line off, which station does it join in? It basically joins up with, it joins up with Midland Main Line, doesn't it? Somewhere just before Belper. Gosh, I can't remember exactly. So it kind of branches off a bit, kind of near to where the Matlock line branches off. And again, that's a very nice heritage railway going down the valley from Wirksworth. And there's another much smaller railway just up the road from Wirksworth. If you're going from Matlock Bath, then top of the hill where you've got Black Rocks on your left-hand side, before you drop down into Wirksworth itself, if you turn right there, then you've got the Steeple Grange Light Railway. So just chuck a right there and then take your next left. And Steeple Grange Light Railway is a lovely little narrow gauge, absolutely charming. So quite rich pickings for heritage railway lines in that area. And of course, you're not a million miles away from Butterley, which is really quite a big one. It's only about 1.5 miles from the restaurant. And that really is, that's a full day out, is that. And I can't remember the name of the line, but that kind of runs out to Butterley Reservoir one way, and then down through Jacksville, Iron Bridge, and joins up with one of the main lines. I can't remember, somewhere around Jacksville, I think it is. Mark Prasad says, "Evening, Boaty." Good evening to you, Mark. The potential new business in the cafe that came available sounds fascinating. It's just a thought. I've not looked into it. I got notified that Ignition had closed their doors. It's literally 300 yards from Windybum from here. And I was just throwing about ideas. If it becomes about, I'm assuming that the lease is going to become available again when, but I don't know. I've got absolutely no idea. I don't know if, I've forgotten his name. He's a lovely chap. I've spoken to him. The guy who owns Ignition, I don't know if he's committed to the lease and he will sell the lease. Or I don't know if the lease can be dropped due to the change in the tenancy agreement, and the lease will then be reoffered on the general market. I've got no idea. I was just throwing around ideas, really. But we are looking to open a third branch. And although it's a bit out, my idea is a bit out of left field, I can't really see any reason why it wouldn't work and wouldn't work quite well. But it's only just a passing fancy of an idea. We'll see if anything becomes even possible. Ashley says, I really enjoyed the Jag video. Delighted to hear it. And I would definitely think about getting one as my next daily. It was a hell of a car. Hell of a car. God, I'd love one. Bad Book says, the weather vane. I remember you telling me about this, Bad Books. Bad Book says, at the weekend, I fitted a weather vane to the car shed. It looks great. I told you it would. And survived its first thunderstorm. Oh, well, that's good news. I like a weather vane. Feature 3, do you like a weather vane? Right, we'll ignore that one. Skick says, if I got a load of rubbish and tipped it in the river, I would be arrested. Why can't the police arrest the person at these water companies that gives the order to spill it in the rivers? Gosh. Well, that's quite a good question, Skick. And off the top of my head, I can't give you an answer to that. But yeah, it's a good point. Bad Books is old enough to remember as a sales rep faxing all orders to the head office. Paper on rolls, nightmare. Yeah, I remember fax machines. I had a fax machine. Well, I mean, we had fax machines at work. Obviously, I had one at home as well for some ridiculous reason. Not the most convenient things on God's earth, but again, they were kind of a godsend at the time. And proved to be, really very useful. But of course, when you look at them now, in light of today's technology, they do seem ridiculously old hat. Pingu says, I am old enough to remember when the news was about the future opening of the Channel Tunnel in 92. Yeah, I remember that. P.S. Amiga game. Colin the Cleaner, anyone? I never had an Amiga. Okay. I've just thought of one. Okay, so when it came to dedicated games consoles, what did you have? Dedicated games consoles. Now, the first one that I had, and this would have been at a time when Ataris were all the range with Space Invaders and all of that business. I had, God, what was it called? I think it was called a Philips Video Pack. Is that right? I'd have to Google that. And yeah, I don't think it was the coolest one to have, but yeah, I do remember that. It had some good games on it, that. And then I didn't have one for ages and ages. And then I had, oh God, what was it? A Sega Mega Drive. When Sasha and I first lived together, we had a Sega Mega Drive. That's right, I remember that. Sonic the Hedgehog, International Football. There was another game that we used to play that I can't remember. God, those seem like innocent times. Dear me. Oh, hello. That's jumped a bit. Bad Book says, Pingu, a customer has an X-Channel Tunnel JCB digger with over 1 million hours, still going strong. Gosh, yeah. Those big they were a hell of a machine that did the Channel Tunnel, weren't they? That bloody great big whirling around thing. I remember being terribly excited by the Channel Tunnel. And I must say, I've not done it for many, many years, but I used to love the Channel Tunnel. I think I've told you before that there was a long period where I was going over every 3 weeks. And then there was a period where I was spending months of the year in Normandy, in a beautiful gîte in an old cider farm. I used to base myself there for like 3 months of the year. And that was always a tunnel job. And then that fantastic drive from Coquel all the way down over the Pont de Normandy. That's a hell of a bridge. What's the scariest bridge you've ever been over? There's a good one. What's the scariest bridge you've ever been over? Now, I remember the first time I saw the Pont de Normandy, and I was on a road trip with my mother. Actually, we were heading to the Sheet. It was our first time in the Sheet, and I took Mum with me, bit of company, and I just remember suddenly this bridge hoved up, and it just looked so immense, and I remember just going, "Effing hell, dear me." Yeah, the scariest bridge I've ever been over was last year, the Humber Bridge. Scared the willies out of me for some reason. I think it was the fact that it's got lower sides. But yeah, I mean, obviously the one I would love to do, and I've never done it, but I will do one day, is the Millau Viaduct. That must be an absolutely extraordinary experience. I'd very much like to do that. Obviously, I've done both Severn Bridges a million times. You do that sort of thing when you have a place in Wales, or when you're living full time in Wales and commuting to Birmingham, which I did for too bloody long, basically. And I tell you what I was talking about today as well. I love. Nobody likes paying tolls, or I don't think anybody does anyway. But the great thing about the tolls is that when you've gone through the booths, then you've got that big area with no white lines, and it's just an absolute mad free for all. As it's like the start of a Grand Prix, and you're all trying to, before you have to sort yourself into the motorway lanes. But yeah, it was a grand day when when it became free to get into Wales. I mean, we really conned you. We were charging you to come into Wales for about 13 years after we were supposed to have stopped. But we just carried on because, money, useful stuff, innit? Plus, there is a little bit of a niggle between the Welsh and the English. You lot coming in, buying up our cottages, all of that, all of that sort of thing. Winslow Burdett is here and says, JC Bamford. Yes, indeed. I remember going to their house, if I remember correctly. It was somewhere near Alton Towers, and God, this is going back a while. And if I remember correctly, have any of you guys been? You might know. And there was like a big courtyard with cars parked around, and the cars registrations were JCB1, JCB2, JCB3, JCB4. Quite impressive at the time, if you're into that sort of thing. I would, there's another feature. Oh, we've done that one, haven't we? Our personal reg is a bit. Now, we've done that to death. Mustard's done it as well, hasn't he? Simone is here. Good evening. And Skicker says, hi, Simone. Hi, everyone, says Simone. Evening, Simone. Mega Drive was my first, says Tom C. Does anybody else remember? I'm sure it was called a Philips Video Pack, but I think it was Video Pack just with a C, not with a CK. Greg Goddard is with us and says, evening, Boaty. Hope you're well. I've had a very stressful and depressing day. Well, I'm really sorry to hear that. Do you need to talk about it, sir? Finally relaxing watching your live stream. Well, I hope it is relaxing. But oh dear, I'm sorry to hear about your bad day, mate. And I hope tomorrow is a lot better for you, and I hope you have a lovely evening tonight and a good kip. I mean, it's new world in the morning, isn't it, my lovelies? It's always a new world in the morning. That's important to remember sometimes, that when you get bogged down by the issues of the day or the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that life can and does throw at us all, then always remember, new world in the morning, completely new day. And, the day can be as good or as bad as you jolly well decide to make it. The first console I played with, says Joe, was the original PlayStation, and I still have it too. I had a PlayStation at some point. Oh, God. Yeah, and I've just remembered why I got one. I was doing some stuff with a guy called, Oh, God, I've forgotten his name. What was his name? Oh, he was the he was in a group, a pop rock group called Money. Oh, Johnny O, that was it. Johnny O, John Overton. Money weren't very big in the UK, but they were quite big in other countries. And when the band split up, um, Johnny invested in equipment, and he set up a company called Now Hire, which stood for North of Watford Hire. So any of the big stuff that was outside London, north of London, so NEC, whatever that massive place is in Manchester, anything like that, he would be doing the sound and light. But he had this thing about encouraging new people to come through. And I can't remember how I met him. Oh, I can actually. I can. Before I bought my own equipment, when I started singing, for a couple of trial gigs, I rented equipment and I rented it off him. That's how I met him. And we got on really, really well. And we set up a few little things together. Why am I talking about this? Oh, yeah, that's right. Including, oh God Almighty, my first stint on Radio WM at Pebble Mill, and I made things sound a little too good. And oh God, we just got bloody inundated. Actually had to put an extra phone line in. But he had a PlayStation and he had that, whatever it was called, car racing game. And he was obsessed with it. He said, look, you can power oversteer, you can hang the tail out, it's amazing. And he was so enthusiastic about it and getting me to play on it. I thought, well, I'll buy one of those so that I can play with it. And I found out that I didn't like sitting playing with it. You know, I'd rather go out and drive real cars instead, or go out and sing, or go out and drink, or go out and find girls, or any of that sort of thing. So I bought one and hardly ever used it. But I hope John's doing all right. He was such a nice guy, loveliest guy ever. What did I do? I had an Amiga 500, says Barry, and played Swiv, whatever that is. And I had a PS2 and played GTI Vice City religiously. Right, I've heard about this GTA, Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, I've heard about that. I don't know if I approve of it. Actually, isn't that the one where you can do bad things? Yeah, not sure about that. Ashley says it was Sega Mega Drive for me too. Mark says, facts. You were lucky. When I worked in telesales in the late 80s, our sales could only be confirmed by the customer by telex. Oh, gosh. Telex, there's a thing. Games console, says Skick. Ask Simone. She is an expert. Oh, right, jolly good. I had a Mega Drive, says Buddy. It lived in the wardrobe mostly. Joe says Crash Bandicoot, Crash Team Racing, Theme Park, Rayman, all great games. All right, here's another one then. Okay. What was your favorite, like, full arcade game? Not a home one, something that you would have played in an arcade, like, who remembered Daley Thompson's Track and Field? Or Frogger. Tom C says, I still have my Mega Drive. Carlos TM, me and my first wife used to play Lara Croft games on a PS1. There was something, I used to love doing that with Sash. They were simpler, more innocent times somehow. I mean, we were very young. I think she was just about to turn 21 when we got together and shacked up together. And a relationship was quite cool when you were that young. It was like exciting to be grown up, having your own place, cooking your own food, spending your own time together. And I remember with great fondness evenings sitting playing that thing with Sash. Yeah, happy days. Jimmy Quinn says, I remember seeing the Beatles riding a white horse, making a video where I lived in London. That's quite cool. Bad Books had a Donkey Kong standalone electronic game. Wow. You must have been a rich kid. Here we go, Simone. Sinclair Spectrum 48K, Sega Master System, Mega Drive, Mega CD, Game Gear, Saturn, Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, Nintendo 64, SNES, GameCube, Wii. Oh, Wii. I've had a doings with a Wii. When I was married, the kids were given a Wii by one of the outlaws. That was quite a good wheeze. Game Boy, Xbox, and Xbox 360. Gosh. Tom Seam, favourite has to be Brooklyn Bridge at night, heading back towards Manhattan. The view is awesome. Oh, and Simone would just like to clarify that she still has most of those devices. Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that either. Stop doing these things. You were doing that earlier today, and I wish you wouldn't. iPad. Pull yourself together, please. Bad Book says there's a lovely Victorian ex-railway viaduct converted to a road bridge at Bishop Auckland. Lovely view, but a bit scary. And Carlos says, mind you, I also used to play Minder and Paperboy on the ZX Spectrum. That was fun loading games on tapes. Title, No Feet Please, We're British. That's not a bad one. I will. Oh, bollocks. Oh, well, I made a complete pudding of that. Oh, God, no, I'm just making it worse. I wanted to screenshot it. It is, of course, your solemn and sworn duty to come up with a name for this live stream, if you would be so kind. And Pingu has opened the batting with No Feet Please, We're British, which is actually quite good. Joe says Philip CD. No, it was called a video pack or a video pack 3000, something like that. Somebody Google it. I'm sure I remember it right. And I'm sure it was a Philips. Maybe it wasn't. Simone says Panasonic 3DO. I forgot about that one. I've never heard of it. It was cheaper to buy a PS1 back then rather than a CD player, says Joe. Was it? Pingu says 4 hours to load Outrun on several cassettes, just for the game to crash and have to start loading again. I remember that. Oh, Neil's here. Neil, a.k.a. the Gibbinator. Hello all. Sorry, I will be listening more than typing as I'm on shift until midnight. God, what you got left? An hour and 25. Well, I hope you don't get some pig of a job that you have to start doing at 11, mate. Hope you're doing all right. Hope you had a good weekend. Otter MG says evening, Boaty. Evening, good evening to you. Rover Joe says Driver. Which one was Driver? If that's the one I'm thinking of, I love that. If that's the one I'm thinking of, I love that. I remember, God, childhood memories. I'm sure it was Driver that I remember playing when I was a relatively small child on Llandudno Pier. And it was, it was all dark and you're following taillights in front of you. God, I would buy one of those and have it here in the cottage. Gran Turismo was brilliant, say Simone. Daley Thompson's Decathlon on the Spectrum ZX. Pingu's first game was Pong. Excuse me. Spyro, says Joe. And Barry says, yes. On that GTA thing, you can play and commit all sorts of crimes. Yeah, I don't know if I approve of that. Not, of course, that my approval makes any difference whatsoever. Bad Book says, I remember seeing Prince Charles and Lady Di at Carnarvon the year before they were married. Stunning lady. Lord Linley / Snowden was there, a great laugh. There was a fighter jet game in the arcade. I think it was called Afterburner, says Barry. The Fast and Furious arcade game was great. My favourite game to play in the arcade was Galaxian 88. Loved it. I loved that as well. Arcade game, says Mark. It was Afterburner for me. Climbing into the F-14 Tomcat simulator was a highlight of my teens. Can't remember that one. The Nintendo DS, says Joe, and Simone says, yep, we've got one of them. I have a few racing PS1 games, says Joe. Wipeout was awesome too. Ridge Racer, Gran Turismo, and Formula One. I remember Scramble on the Commodore 64 with a joystick, that plugged into something, and it was like, well, I suppose it was supposed to be like a fighter jet joystick, and it had an auto fire button on the bottom, so you could just keep firing. I loved Scramble. That was great. When you got to the God Almighty, tonight is raking up all sorts of memories that I had no idea were still there. There was that bit on Scramble, wasn't there, when you got a bit further in, and instead of having open country, there were like buildings or things, and you had to go like that, and God, Breakout on the Atari 2600. Dear me, we are going back in time tonight, aren't we, my lovelies? Has anyone played Car Mechanic Simulator? Maybe somebody has. Well, tell Simone, have you played Car Mechanic Simulator? I don't play any games of any nature these days. Well, I haven't done for... Sorry. Total frog in the throat. Bit dry-throated today. Sitting in the car all day, I guess, with dry air. Never mind, it'll be wine time soon, and that'll be something to look forward to, won't it? In fact, I need to put the glass in the fridge and the wine in the freezer. There we go. And I am thoroughly looking forward to supper tonight, which is going to be Momo and chutney. Do you know, last week, 0 Momo, nothing. So I'm overdue, and I'm looking forward to that. And today's lunch was, well, it was road trip lunch, wasn't it? And my food flask had its second outing, so it did. And you can see the remnants in there. Staff cutting in rice. Very good it was too. Now, poor old Mustard had a bit of a problematical morning. What we should have done, really, we should have accepted the signs that today was not going to be successful and abandoned it by the time Mustard got here an hour late or whatever it was. The signs were not propitious, shall we say. I can't get that back on then. Never mind, I'll sort that in a moment. I mean, it wasn't a bad car, but it wasn't described as fairly as it could have been. You know, there were certain things that the seller forgot to mention, and which were definitely not in the pictures. And he wasn't a very sympathetic sort of chap. He wasn't one of us. He wasn't a Rover guy. He said, "Oh well, if it hasn't sold in a week, I'll give it to the kids to take into the field and build some ramps, and they can jump it over things and wreck it, and then I'll scrap it." He said it's got the original cat on it. It'll scrap for 700 quid. And that was at the end when we'd said, "Yeah, no, not having it, mate, not having it." And I think that was kind of well, if these guys genuinely are Rover enthusiasts, then they won't want it to go to scrap. They won't want kids wrecking it in the field. Maybe they'll change their minds, but and he wasn't interested in any bids. He wasn't interested in any lower offers because, you know, and unfortunately, he's quite correct. The car had a value as scrap. Now, if you're an enthusiast, you might well let a car go at or near scrap value in order to save it, in order to keep it on the road. But he was the sort of chap who didn't give two hoots about that. So there we are. If anybody's in the market for one, then if you were buying it as a personal car, then it's probably worth the money he's asking. If you were looking for not a project, but if you were looking for a good driving car with quite a rare spec, with a reasonable mileage on and a fair bit of MOT that you could then improve, you could probably do a lot worse. So I'm thinking of looking, says Skick, for a Mark 11 Fiesta. Excellent, didn't know there was such a thing. Oh, is that Mark II? Sorry. A Mark II Fiesta XR2 in black. I was quite fond of Mark II. I've got very fond memories of an XR2 because Zoodle Twips had an XR2. And I remember, I think I told you about it before, I remember driving that on our first date. I drove her car. Can't remember why. Maybe because I knew where we were going or something. And yeah, that was my first, well, it was my first date with Zoe, who I was obsessed by. And turned out to be my first encounter with Alanis Morissette. And yeah, that was in an XR2. I don't know. God, it would have been, I think it was a 90 car, 91 car. What would that be? Mark II, Mark III? But I remember thinking that was quite cool. And the Fiesta RS thing, that 1600 turbo, wasn't it? That was quite cool as well. I wouldn't mind one of those. We still have an old Amstrad, says Joe. Simone says, Boaty, between 2008 and 2016, 8 years, I had a severe addiction to gaming. Oh, gosh. I now struggle with the joints in my hands, compounded by my arthritis. I don't play like I used to. Well, I imagine you don't. Gosh, there's a thing. You know, I guess there are addictions that we don't that don't immediately come to mind. But you know, any severe addiction can be quite harmful, can't it? And I'm sure the gaming addiction is no different. And I imagine that's becoming a very prevalent thing now. That's the Vimto finished. I'm just going to rinse my mouth out so that my wine isn't too tainted when I get to pour the glass. I am looking forward to a little glass or something. Now then, where did we get to? Spectre Skick. Maybe an Avenger Tiger if a good one came up. I quite fancy one of those. Blackline says, evening Boaty, feeling better. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you very much for asking. Simone would like a Hillman Avenger. I almost said adventure. And Simone has entered a competition to win an MG Midget. Not a car that I would want. Nothing against an MG Midget. It's just one of those cars that I really, 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 really struggle to drive. I think we covered this last week, didn't we, or the week before? But the cars from memory that I've had the most difficulty driving are Triumph Spitfire, MG Midget, and a Series 1 Lotus Esprit. just not enough damn room. Not enough damn room. There were probably others, but if somebody mentioned them, I might remember them. I don't remember them off the top of my head. But yeah, I really struggle in a midget and in a Spitfire and in an early Esprit. I can just about drive them all, but quite honestly, probably a bit unsafe in them, in all honesty. Whereas an MGB, I was supremely comfortable in an MGB. I loved the driving position of an MGB. I've had hundreds, literally hundreds of them. And that's not an exaggeration. I think I've told you before that when I had the showrooms, MGBs were the bread and butter. I used to sell one a day, literally. It would be a very odd month where I didn't average one MGB a day. And I just found myself so comfortable in them, really so comfortable in them. The driving position was just the way I like it. I like to sit very low. I like to sit with my legs fully outstretched and with my arms outstretched as well. Quite an Italian driving position. And the MG accommodated that most admirably. And I didn't even mind the later Bs, the rubber bumpered ones. I thought they were quite funky in the kind of early 80s car when they all had that deck chair interior and that big old plastic molded wheel. I didn't mind that in the least. And one of the big pluses of the later B was that the overdrive was moved. Now, in earlier Bs, the overdrive was operated by a toggle switch on the dash. And if you got big hands like me, you could operate the toggle with one of the extreme fingers on your right hand. I'm sure it was on the right. A few years ago now, bear with me if I make a mistake. Whereas, of course, in the later Bs, the overdrive switch was located on top of the gear knob. So that was tremendous. And you had overdrive on 3 and 4. So you'd throw it into third and hit your peak revs, and then literally just a click into overdrive third, hit peak revs, and then you change into fourth, clicking the overdrive off, because it was an electric overdrive, obviously. So you're then into standard fourth, and then you could click into overdrive fourth. The only downside of that was the wiring for the overdrive going through the gear knob was a really tortuous route. And the wiring would very often fail, meaning that the overdrive didn't work. But when it did work, it was an absolute joy. I loved driving an MGB. I would love to have one today. I would love to have that experience back. I drove many, many, many tens of thousand miles in an MGB. Diddly-do, where did I get to? Out of interest, is the staff curry, and this is Mark, is the staff curry ever a fish curry? No. And if so, what fish do the restaurant use? My dad always used to love a staff fish curry. No, we never use fish. And we never cook fish for ourselves. We've got fish on the menu, not much. We do a sea bass fillet, and yeah, we'll do any curry as a fish curry with just bits of, whatever fish it is. But no, never in staff curry. Staff curry will always be chicken or dal. Michael is here, and right, Michael, I had to hide you last time, mate, because I'm getting complaints. So you're very welcome here, Michael, but ease up on the foot requests. And by ease up, I mean cut them out entirely, because everybody's bored of reading them. Other than that, good evening to you, and thank you for joining us. Live one, Kenneth says bad books. Simone says Sheldon had a Hillman Hunter estate. Now, my grandfather had a succession of Hillman Hunters, so That's a car from my childhood. My favourite being a brown one with a vinyl roof. Tom C says, talking of rare, Boaty, what is your opinion of the Stepspeed box? I would love one mated to a Streetwise. I am a massive fan of the Stepspeed box, Tom C. I have one in the Honourable Shison, my 25 1.6 IXL, and I think it's a fabulous gearbox. Now, I understand that they can be prone to failure, especially if they are not serviced properly on an annual basis. And I understand that they are prone to rattle because of some inherent thing or other. Shison has actually got a little rattle. Had it since I had him. But that aside, as a functioning gearbox, I have to say that it is my favourite gearbox that I've ever driven. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I've said before that to my non-engineering logical mind, it makes perfect sense, because it should, more than any manual or fully automatic gearbox or even semi-automatic gearbox, the fact that it's CVT should mean that the car is capable of delivering peak economy or peak performance. And that makes perfect sense to me. Now, what is definitely on my list is to drive an MGF or TF Stepspeed with the little buttons on the steering wheel. If one of those ever comes up in silver, I'm going to find a way to get it. But I absolutely adore the Stepspeed box. Is my answer to that, Tom. And I would very happily have one in each of my vehicles. Now, I'm really low on automatics at the moment. Normally, the majority of my cars would be auto. It's my general preference. And at the moment, I've only got, how many have I got? 2, 3. Shison is auto. Sir Richard Morris, Dick-a-Dum-Dum, he's auto, of course, but the CVT wasn't available as an option with the 45 V6 because there was just too much power to put through that CVT box. So the 45 V6, uniquely in the 45 lineup, had the Jatco 5-speed auto box, which isn't the best, quite honestly. I mean, it's not the worst, but yeah, not the best. I would much rather have a Stepspeed. Have I got any other? Have I got another automatic? I haven't, have I? The rest are all manual. Gosh, but yeah, I adore the Stepspeed box. There you go, and I wish I had more of them. And again, if anybody wants to tell me that I'm wrong or how I'm wrong, I'd love to hear it. But surely, every engine is going to have a point in its rev range where it is at its most economical and a point in its rev range where it is at its most powerful. So surely, if you've got a gearbox that allows the revs to remain constant exactly at that point, then surely by sheer logical definition, that gearbox would make that car more economical and give better performance than any other kind of gearbox. That makes total and utter sense to me. So do tell me if and how I'm wrong. Diddly do. Oh, right. Joe says, so how has everyone been? I love the Stepspeed box, auto box, says Joe, but they do have problems and they need to be serviced regularly. Thomas says, I don't usually comment, just listen. Fair enough, Thomas, you are entitled to do that, but I'm delighted that you're chatting with us now. But when I eventually get my MGB back on the road in the next year or so, you're more than welcome to have a drive, Boaty. Thank you. I would love to do that, and that's exceedingly kind of you. And it is now officially wine o'clock. Oh, no, it's not. It is on the... Oh, it is now. My cooker is a little bit ahead of my iPad. Who looks at their cooker to get the time? And is the time on your cooker set to the right time? Now, mine always is. So is my microwave. And I do look at them to see what time it is. Why does that always happen with cheap Sainsbury's wine? Ah, lovely. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Oh, hello. What's that? Oh, a new offer from the seller on an item on eBay. I'm not going to be buying that. I don't even know why that's in my on my watch list. So, sorry, Mr. Seller. I won't be taking it. Cheers, darlings. You're very good health. Oh, and yeah, tonight's toast is Joe. Bless him. It's breaking my heart watching his stuff on Facebook and the live streams on his Facebook page. I really am struggling to deal with it. And I feel ridiculous saying that, because who am I to say I'm struggling when he's the one going through it? Very bravely, I might add. And, oh, yeah. Anyway. Simone says, I have no idea what a Stepspeed box is. Well, Simone, you're in luck, because I can tell you. Stepspeed was not originally called Stepspeed. It was called Steptronic, and it is a gearbox that was designed and built by the Bayerischen Motorenwerken, or BMW. And they used it also in the Rover products until such time as BMW sold the company, when Rover were able to carry on using the gearboxes, but they did have to rebrand them as Stepspeed rather than Steptronic to differentiate them from those fitted in BMW cars. But they were exactly the same car. And what they are a continually variable or continuously variable transmission gearbox. So if you don't know what that is, then obviously with a normal automatic gearbox, you press the accelerator, the revs go up, and then it changes gear. So the revs go down, you accelerate, revs go up, and you go through a section of gears. Now, on a CVT gearbox, the revs stay constant and the gear ratio continuously alters. But on the Stepspeed or Steptronic, so you've got a CVT box, so, you know, park, reverse, neutral, drive. You've then got, if you move the lever over to the right, that engages a sport setting so that the revs sit higher up the rev range. In normal setting, the revs will sit at 2K or about 2K. Move it into sport and they sit at just over 4K, obviously for increased performance, increased power. But then on top of that, when you're in the sports area of the gearbox, you then have manual sequential shifting, forward to shift up, backwards to shift down. Now, you might say, if a CVT gearbox doesn't have gears per se, how can you have a 6-speed manual shift option? Well, and the answer to that is that very cleverly, they programmed in just set points on the CVT range. So if you want to use it as a manual gearbox, you can do, and it effectively uses gears, although they're not really gears. There are not 6 separate gears in that gearbox that you are swapping between. They are just not randomly, but they are just selected pre-programmed points on the CVT spectrum, as it were. And that's quite useful for, you know, engine braking, really. And you might say it's quite useful for power driving, but I don't think it is. I don't think it is, because if you're in sport mode and the revs are sitting pretty much at peak power, then why would you want to go into manual mode so that you can move away from peak power? Makes no sense to me. I might be completely wrong. God knows I'm no engineer. I understand virtually nothing technical. But, you know, that's what makes sense to me. Again, please do point out the error of my ways if I am mistaken. And Bad Book says, Simone, plastic bands like a daft, clever tech. Ashley Stewart says, my dad had a Lotus Carlton when I was a kid. Don't talk about those to me. I was looking yesterday and they're selling for over 100k now. Don't think I will be getting one anytime soon. I've got very bad memories of a Lotus Carlton. In all of my time at the dealership, we only were broken into and had a car stolen twice. And each time it was a Lotus Carlton. Now, the second time, oh, God. The second time one was stolen, obviously, you know, we were very wary of having a Lotus Carlton, given what had happened before. So it was parked at night. Imagine the showroom is here, and you've got big, foldy, open and closed doors there to allow the cars to go in and out of the showroom. In front of those, you've got two massive metal posts that were locked in place when the doors were shut. So you've got two massive metal posts locked in place. Then you've got big, pretty secure doors locked in place, alarmed up the wazoo. And then in the showroom, in the line of cars that went in and out, they went outside on display. Let me try and remember. There was a Bentley Turbo R in pole position, a Porsche 911 Turbo in P2, and then the Lotus Carlton was in P3 behind those. We got a call from the alarm company. Raced up to the showrooms. I was living in Cook Hill at the time, and they'd broken in, got the keys to the Lotus Carlton, and they'd used the Lotus Carlton as a battering ram to push the 911 and the Turbo R, which Turbo R would have been in park, handbrake on, or foot brake, as it were. The 911, again, would have been in gear, handbrake on. And they used this bloody Lotus Carlton as a battering ram to push the cars through the doors and over the posts, causing an incredible amount of damage. And then they took off in the Lotus Carlton. They were the #1 vehicle for ram raiding back in the day, which is why they were a so frequently stolen vehicle. I mean, you know, they were quite expensive. If memory serves, I had the one that was stolen up at 35 grand, 34,999 at that time. And yeah, so it was absolute carnage. And of course, the police were out there and they said, look, there's a strong chance that they might come back tonight because obviously you're wide open now. So they might do their thing, stash the car, whatever. They might well be back. And I sort of said, excellent. So you chaps, you'll be hanging around, will you? There'll be police presence throughout the night. Nope. And I slept that night. Well, I didn't sleep. I spent the night in the Bentley Turbo R, basically, shitting myself in case these bad guys came back. And all I had was, I can't remember if it was a baseball bat or a pickaxe handle, and thinking, Christ almighty, this could be the night that I die. That was a long, dark, cold, scary night, tell you that. Simone says, a random question to everyone. What would you value my Cortina at? Somebody might have a clue. I haven't. No idea. Mark says, thanks, Boaty. Another great get-together. Good night and good night to all here. Oh, you're off, are you, Mark? Okay. Well, have a safe and peaceful night. Sophie's here, the lovely Sophie Richardson. Hi, everyone. Hi to you. Hope you're doing well. Barry says, your Cortina in its condition is about 1,500 quid, Simone. There we are. Oh, what's happened there? Oh, God. My iPad's going mental. Skick says, Simone, I told you last week it's about 3.5 to 4K. Gosh, so we've gone from 1,500 quid from Barry to 3.5 to 4K from Skick. Perhaps I should auction it. Okay, Skick, you are lead bidder at £4,000. Any advance on £4,000? I used to love auctioneering. Obviously, we used to hold normally quarterly physical auctions, classic and sports car auctions. And I used to share the auctioneering duties. I'd take bids from a fire extinguisher, from the hot dog store, you name it, I'll take a bid from it. By mistake, I actually sold a car to the fire extinguisher once. God, that was embarrassing. So says, hi, Boaty, how are you? I'm grand, hope you're doing okay. Sorry, later coming in. Neil is on later. He'll finish his work at midnight. Oh, well, bless you for coming at any time. Simone says, I turn off the cooker at the wall. It's wasting elastic trickery. Oh, right. Oh, jolly good. Bad Book says, Boaty, your spray carnations are still doing fantastic. Incredible with all this heat. Yeah, they're still there, aren't they? Still alive. They're not going to last another week, are they? But they've done bloody well. £2.50 well spent, I'd say. Ashley says, my dad's were stolen and set fire to. Oh, God. They were just one of those cars back in the day that were impossible to own. They were probably the most impossible to own car. You couldn't insure them. You couldn't park them anywhere because they'd just get nicked. I know that Cosworths had that rep back in the day as well, but nothing like a Lotus Carlton. And I can't remember much about the cars themselves or whether I even liked them or not. Generally speaking, back in the day, I might feel differently now. Generally speaking, back in the day, I wasn't a fan of the power versions of relatively standard cars, if that makes any sense. I remember when the Sierra Cosworth came out, and of course everybody was going absolutely mental for them. And I got my hands on an RS 500. Took it for a spin, and my overriding sensation and memory, and this was even more exacerbated by the Sapphire Cosworth, my overriding memory was, well, okay, it's quite quick, but you're still sitting in a Sierra. And that was my memory. And I probably felt similarly with the Lotus Carlton, although it would have been from memory a bit plusher. But I definitely remember not being at all impressed by the Sierra Cosworth, either the Sapphire or the 3-door, because no matter how quick they were, you're still sitting in a Sierra. You might have Recaro seats and a flash gear knob, but you're sitting in a Sierra, a Repmobile. And I thought this would never be for me. You know, I like performance as much as the next guy, but I want the whole package. I want it to be a bit different. And if I'm sitting in a car that I've paid the National Debt of Korea for, I don't want to be looking at the same dashboard view as somebody who's got a Sierra 1.6L as their company repmobile. Which was quicker, asks Gick, a Dolomite Sprint or an Escort Mexico? That's an interesting question. Well, I'm not qualified to answer this. I mean, a Dolomite Sprint was obviously the world's first 16-volt production car. The Escort Mexico, see, I can't even remember what engine the Escort Mexico had. Was it a 2-litre Pinto or something? Somebody will tell me. Somebody will tell me. So I honestly don't know. I know which I think was cooler. I think the Mexico was a lot cooler. Wasn't the Mexico the one with the tennis racket headrest? That was really cool. But yeah, throw that one out at you as well. I'm so sorry. So bless you, Soph. I'm really excited to see you, Boaty. Do you mean now on this live stream, or do you mean coming up? Well, same goes for me. Both. It's always lovely to see all of my friends on the live. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to your visit up with Joe. It's going to be brilliant, especially if you guys come to the restaurant as well. Ram's quite excited about that. It'll be a few days before he heads off to Nepal for 2 weeks or a month. But if any of you are interested in Nepal, Ram has promised to send me daily videos to give you an idea of what life is really like in the non-tourist part of Nepal, with Ram and his family and some traditional Nepali celebrations. Ram's dad passed away within a year, and there's going to be a special celebration of his dad that hundreds of people will be coming to. So I'm really looking forward to those, and I hope that you will enjoy them too. I will pop them into the daily diaries, but then I might do an all-together version as well, and put together a video thing of his, because you always get a different perspective of a country from somebody who is living the local life, I think, rather than a tourist going and looking at the tourist things. So it's very kind of Ram, well, assuming that he does it, it's very kind of him to give us that time. And yeah, I hope you will enjoy seeing the inside. And I certainly hope that Sophie, Joe and Neil enjoy meeting him, if indeed you do come to the restaurant. I test drove an Alpha 156 2-litre twin spark with a cellar speed box, says Black Lines, and it failed on the test drive, so I had to get towed back. I bought a manual. Right, and Simone has insured the car for £6,000. That's TC, of course, her Cortina. Bad Book says, Simone, you did right. Did insurance need a club valuation or just pictures? Somebody's done a nice thing. Who is it? Is it Mike? It's Mike, bless you. Thank you, Mike. The lovely Mike, Classic Wheels Wales, has sent me a super chat, which is massively appreciated. I must admit, God, I'm giving away some trade secrets here, aren't I? For those who don't know, if you have a classic car, a classic insurance policy on your classic car, you might have something called an agreed value. Now, what that means is that you and the insurance company agree a value for your car, and if anything happens to your car, that is what you will get paid out. So there's no nonsense, there's no being lowballed, there's no having to try and justify a higher price. That is the price that you will get paid out. Now, when you take out an agreed value, then the insurance company may require nothing from you. They may require some pictures from you or various other details, and this often happens with higher value cars, they would require a valuation from an expert. Now, shouldn't admit this, should I? I had a very healthy business at the showrooms doing these specialist valuations for agreed valuation purposes. I had a pro forma letter set up on my computer that basically said that having inspected vehicle, blah, 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 registration, blah, 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 all the details of the vehicle. Having thoroughly inspected this vehicle, along with all attendant restoration history, blah, 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 I would recommend that this vehicle be insured for a figure of not less than X amount of quids in figures and in words. And that was a pro forma that I just had ready to roll off. And I used to charge 35 quid for one of those. And I never looked at the bloody cars. You want a valuation? Absolutely, of course, sir. Please do take a seat there. Would you like a coffee, drink of any sort? Coffee, please. Right. How much do you want to insure it for? And they would tell me, and I would just put it in. I'd put in the details of the car, put in whatever they said they wanted the valuation to be, print it off, and there you go, sir. £35. Thank you very much. Never looked at the cars. And I used to do, oh dear. I used to get really good beer money out of that. I mean, obviously, you know, I was expert. So if they were giving an outlandish price, then obviously I wouldn't have done it. And obviously I would know if it was an outlandish price, but sod it. Insurance companies, sod them. Where do we get to? Sophie says, I love MG and working on Neil's car with him. He teaches me what to do and tells me about the cars. I love it as a woman. I would love to get my hands dirty and work on cars. Well, jolly good for you. Why should it be a male domain? Why shouldn't women be just as interested in cars and just as willing and capable of getting their hands dirty? So good on you, I say. He had the Granada Cosworth as well, says Ashley. Gosh, now that is quite a rare beast, isn't it? The Granada Cosworth. Weren't many of those. I think, God, you know, I've got a brochure upstairs covering the Granada Cosworth. And it wasn't a Granada, was it? I think it was marketed as the Scorpio Cosworth, but not the Scorpio that came after the Granada, the ugliest car ever made in the history of the world. There was a Scorpio model name on the Granada that came before. And I'm sure the Cosworth engine Granada, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. This is, you know, this is old knowledge and could have been incorrect to begin with. But I'm sure that the Cosworth engine Granada was badged as a Scorpio. And if memory serves, it had the 2.9 24 valve Cosworth lump in there. Now, I was quite a fan of the Mark II Granada. Yeah, I really was, especially the saloon. The Dolly Sprint was faster, but just. Oh, there you go. There's an answer on that. Tom C says, I always thought the same of the 75 V8. Never seemed to fit with the rest of the range. Yeah. It doesn't massively appeal to me, if I'm honest. I love my ZT190. The 260, well, I wouldn't turn it down if somebody gave me one. But do I think it's worth the massive extra cost over a 190? Oh, well, I mean, each to their own. I mean, obviously, I've driven Liz's, which is supercharged and which is an incredible motor vehicle in every sense of the word. But Yeah, it doesn't seem entirely right, if I'm honest. You'd love to see Ram at the restaurant. Well, let's make that happen, Soph. Diddly do. Okay, still talking about the value on Simone's Cortina. Loads of cosy grannies, Mr. Boat. God, are there? I must dig that brochure out. I got when I was a couple of years ago, before I changed onto MG Rover, I had all Fords. All of the fleet were Fords, and I've got this brilliant brochure from from whenever it is, late 80s, early 90s, covering the whole of the Ford range. I must put that back in the bathroom and make it my go-to bog reading. I love Fords from that era. I really do. Dad's was Badsters, just a Granada, and Dad's was 91, and Scorpio started 92. Oh, well, there we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. Right, I have caught up with the comments, and there are 32 of you viewing, so that's splendid. And we have still got, we got half an hour to go. Lovely. What would you, oh, hang on, mic's off. Mike says, good night, Jason. Good night, humans. Collecting 4 cars this week. Early start again. So be nice. And then he said some other stuff. Good luck with those 4 collections, Mike. We've got at least, well, we've got a minimum 2, maximum 4 coming into the yard this week. Sierra Sapphire Cosmos, says Skick. Yeah, 2 and 4-wheel drive, but I liked the Sierra Sapphire. I didn't dislike. In fact, I tell you what, one of my favorite cars was a Sierra XR4 before. Ashley, thank you, mate. That's really kind of you. Thank you very much indeed. Very grateful for that. Yeah, I had an XR4 before that I set my personal Birmingham to Blackpool record in. That was a great car. That really was. So, you know, I wasn't against them. And I liked the Sapphire as well. I think booted versions, generally speaking, tend to look better than hatchbacks. And I did like the Sierra Sapphire, but I didn't like the Cosworth because I loved I think it was the 2000E, which is an old Ford name that was used on the Corsair and Cortina. And there was a model of Sierra Sapphire called the 2000E, and it was quite a high spec one with electric windows all round, leather, whatnot. I loved that. I loved that. But I didn't like the Cosworths because you're paying a large amount of money for a performance car, but it's a Sierra. And I could never get those two things together. They, you know, just didn't fit. You know, if you want a high performance car, have a high performance car. I mean, you know, maybe that's just me being weird or snobbish or something, but I just never took to them. I love the Sierra Sapphire, but no, not the Cosworth. Just no. I mean, I remember it had lovely seats, but all that money to sit in a seat, no, didn't do it for me. But each to their own. Diddly do. Oh, Neil is watching you, Boaty. Brilliant. Glad about that. Hopefully, he's only got 35 minutes left. Hopefully, he can just sit on his bum. Hey, Boaty, says John. I had a Ford Scorpio 24 valve Cosworth. A very fast car. I'm pretty sure I had one as well. I had a lot of Granadas. I also had the Granada 2.8 injection gear. Well, I certainly had quite a few of them. After I left the showrooms, I used to always look out for 2.8s and 2.8Is and Gear and Gear X Granadas because And again, I've told you this before, there was a specific window in time where you could make a good living just buying them out of the papers and selling them on eBay in the early days of eBay. And people used to get very excited by eBay, and they would pay more than cars were worth because they got carried away with eBay auction fever. But I'm genuinely fond of Fords of that period. And when I run out of MG Rovers to buy, I might start back on Fords. There are quite a few Fords that I would love to get my hands on. I don't watch, is it Pentor Cars? That guy down in Cornwall? I bet you'll know him, Joe. I watch an odd video of his. He's got a super collection of Fords. It's not one I watch regularly, but the Sierra 2000E two-tone, yes. An Orion 1600E, I'd forgotten about that. Very posh. Sierra Cozzies are worth silly money. No, I mean, they're absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. I mean, even more mundane stuff like an Escort RS Turbo or XR3i that, you know, we used to buy and sell for a few £100. They're doing crazy money now. And yeah, even base model Sierras are worth silly money now. Yeah, absolutely. Joe says, Rover Joe, of course, Rovers are starting to get thin on the ground now. Yeah, they are, aren't they? And in a way, that kind of makes them more exciting and more precious. I'm surprised, if I'm honest, knowing me, I'm surprised that I'm still kind of in love with my fleet and still looking to expand and still excited by them all. And, you know, no plans on changing anything. I think, in all seriousness, I think this could be the fleet to see me out. Still needs adding to. When I become really rich, winning the lottery or something, I want a Disco 3. No, I don't mean that, do I? I mean the Disco 2. No, I mean a 3. I mean a Disco 3, an early one, a 2005 Disco 3 in HSE spec. I think they're fabulous things. They're still well up there. I want an MGTF with the Pressy Pedal Stepspeed box. What else do I want? And I haven't got a Tourer, have I? I wouldn't mind a ZTT, actually. Yeah, I'd want the MG variant. And what I really want to do is to get on top of my cars and stop buggering about doing videos every second of every day and actually do some work on the cars. Get the bloody things down for MOT. I've got 3 cars sitting without MOT at the moment. One of them isn't my fault, the Rover 25, but the others are. And I really should be cracking on with them. So tomorrow, I will go down and book Wetleg's MOT. That's what I'll do. Ah, right. Yeah, I do know him, says Joe, talking about Pentor Cars, or whatever it's called. Lovely bloke, and I nearly bought a 200 VI off him. Oh, there's a hot little bit of kit. Pentor Cars, says Simone. His name's Andy, and he's a really nice guy. Ah. Oh, and here's a question from Simone. Boaty, what was the first Rover you ever drove? God, that's a difficult one. Let me think. It probably would have been when I was a kid. So, you know, driving illegally on a field or on a private road or something. It probably would have been my dad's P5B, a 69 car, I would imagine. And then Dad had a P6. And the first car I drove legally, the first Rover I drove legally, God knows. I honestly don't know. God, what would it have been? I can't. I've got no idea what the first one I drove. It could have been. It could have been an SD1, a V8 Vanden Pla that Dad had. That could have been the first. I can't remember the first car I can't remember the first Rover that I owned. I genuinely can't. I'll tell you what it might have been. It could have been another SD1 that I owned personally that had been fitted with a 5-litre V8. Could have been that one. I almost killed myself in that so many times. God, the back end was lively on it. Dear me, that's a really good question. That is a really good question, and I can't remember. Obviously, at the showrooms, I drove all sorts of Rovers. Every Rover you can, every Rover you can imagine. But I can't remember the first one. If I had to guess, it would have been the P5B, which to this day is probably one of my very favourite Rovers. I can remember the first Rover I wanted, and the first Rover I wanted was the original 200. This came up in the Facebook group the other day, I think. Mark Weaver, the guy I played pool, and one of the guys in the pool team and the snooker team, he had a 216 Vitesse, the SD3, and even before that, one of the kids at university, Richard Onions, and he did pronounce it onions, not onions, like some people who were called onions did. He pronounced it onions. He was the rich kid from Barnt Green, and he had a 216 SE. And I just remember thinking when I was an impressionable teenager that they were fantastic. And I would have loved to have owned one of those. And I never have. And I keep looking at them covetously, thinking that's an itch that I really need to scratch. Other Rovers that I've owned, before these days, any number of 800s. I never owned a 200 or a 400 or a 600. Never owned them. Oh, I did. I had a 216 Cabriolet. Really nice one, actually. Forgotten about that. I used that to commute from South Wales to Birmingham for ages. That was a nice car. I've owned SD1s, 800s. What other Rovers did I have? I did have a P5B. SD1s. Can't really remember many others. I did love the SD1. I was always a huge fan of the SD1. I liked the 800 as well, but I liked the earlier one. I had a Vitesse, a pre-facelift Vitesse, and I thought that was a fabulous car. That was in British Racing Green with that fantastic Ricardo interior. And that was quick. I was really fond of that. And then that was about it. I kind of went off them. I hated the 75 when the 75 came in. I was no fan of the 45, certainly never had one of those. I really disliked the 75. I thought it was ridiculous, to be honest. Yeah, at the time I was one of those who thought that it was, this is just a load of bollocks. It's a wafty old barge mobile trying to pretend that it's harking back to the glory days of Rover, but then looking ridiculous with LCD and LED display. I thought it was a total nonsense. And I vaguely remember thinking that I didn't think they drove that well. Heavy clutch, all of that. I just thought they were pants. And I've got a vague memory that all of the first ones that I drove were fairly lowly models. If I'd have driven an automatic turbo diesel in Connoisseur SE spec, I might have thought differently. But I remember them being manual clubs and classics and just thinking, oh God, no, not for me. Tom says, would you ever consider a P38 Range Rover? Now, I'm not up on my Range Rover code, so you'd need to tell me what a P38 was. I have owned Range Rovers. They were what I would call the classic shape. And my favorite was the 4.2 LSE, the long wheelbase with the 4.2 V8. I had one of those in black. It was one of the favorite vehicles that I've ever owned. And I had another V8, a normal one. I think it was a 3.9 injection. So one of the relatively later ones. And I had that as my cottage car. That was the car that lived at the cottage in Wales. And I kept it there. And that was the car that I used to tramp over the Brecon Beacons in. And the car that all of my kids first drove. I took them all to the industrial estate on the outskirts of Hirawain at the top of the Recos Bank. And we left Mum at home. She didn't want to be involved in any of this. And I took all the kids, and we just spent the evening. They spent the evening driving around in this Range Rover. It was hilarious. 3 girls and a boy. And the girls were all really careful and a bit nervous. And, they were very, very careful and very nervous. And James, the lad, he just jumped in the driver's seat and floored it. And we're all panicking. And but yeah, I don't know what the P38 is. If it's the one that came after that, that looked like a metro cab, then no, wouldn't be interested in that at all. I would want to jump onto the next one, whatever that was called, the sort of relatively early 2000s. But to be honest, I'd rather have a Disco 3 than any of them. Diddly do. Boaty, do you like the Rover P6? I love the Rover P6. I absolutely adore it. I would love to own one. I have owned P6. Of course I have. I didn't mention that when I was talking about personal Rovers, did I? I would love a P6, and I would like. It would have to be a V8. The last one I owned was a 2.2 twin carb. Or was it a single carb? It had the old ribbon speedometer. Remember those? But if I was owning one, I would want to have the V8. I probably wouldn't go for, in fact, I definitely wouldn't go for the 3.5S. I wouldn't go for the manual box. I would go for a standard 3500 automatic. Thank you very much. I loved the gear lever, the automatic gear knob. It was shaped like half an egg cut in half, the bottom half of an egg, and then with a scalloped cutout and the selector D thing that you pressed in to move it. And I absolutely loved that. So I'd like one of those, a 3500, and I would want it with the boot-mounted spare and a full-length Webasto sunroof. And oh God, I can't tell you how happy one of those would have made me. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the P6. My dad drove normal Sierras as a taxi driver, and I guarantee they went quicker than any Cosworth. Yeah. Well, that's the old. Oh fuck's sake! I've done it again, haven't I? Oh, go away. That's the old joke, isn't it? What's the fastest car in the world? A hire car. Has he said what he bought today yet? Asked Cheeseburger. And Skick says, Cheeseburger, all he bought was £50 worth of petrol and the rest. and the rest stick. Bit more than 50 quid, annoyingly. No, we couldn't buy it cheeseburger. It was not as described, not as pictured, and not viable in any way. Well, it wasn't worth to us what he was asking. And I must say that, again, Mustard set this one up. This wasn't one of my blind buys. Now, the last one from 2 weeks ago, not the last car we bought. The last car we bought was the Streetwise, this new Streetwise, the 3-door. What's it called? Dorothy, for God's sake. And that won't be the last car we bought for long. Says what? There's one coming tomorrow with a Stepspeed box. Thank you very much. Yeah, that 600, that was all down to me. I found it. I spoke to the owners. I did the diligence, whatever. We agreed a deal, went down. It was exactly as described, bought it, came back. This one, Mustard did it. And same thing, you know, agreed a deal, went down, and it just wasn't the car it had been portrayed as being. And he wasn't willing to shift on price, so we had no option but to walk away, annoyingly. So yeah, wasted day, a lot of wasted fuel, but I'd rather have lost 100 and whatever it was quid's worth of fuel than be stuck with trying to get profit out of that car, because there's no way that we could have done what we needed to do to it and turn any sort of a profit on it. So it would have been a codge and a compromise, and that's not weird about. That's not what we're about. Now, I'm not saying that our cars are perfect, but the aim is to get decent, worthwhile, long-term cars out at a fair price. And we'd have been pushing it with that one. And to be honest, this isn't on video or anything, but Mustard will tell you, because we parked up, went to look at the car, looked at it for 5 seconds. The owner's walking over, so we're not talking. Mustard turned to me, and I just shook my head. It took me 5 seconds to decide no. And that was before I saw the other bits. And Mustard pretty much felt the same way. So, yeah, what can you do? I tried to find an SD3, rocking horse poo rare, says Simone. Yeah, that's my understanding. There's a load of them in Derbyshire and Rochdale, says Cheeseburger. I wish there were. My dad had I've done that again. My dad had a 216. He hit some spilled diesel, span out and wrote it off. Oh dear. The first Austin Rover group for me was my Maestro. I had a Maestro. Did I? Oh, well, kind of, yeah. I bought a Maestro for Sasha. Sasha was my second fiance. I've had a few fiancés. Only been married once, but I've been engaged quite a few times, like double figures. I've bought a lot of engagement rings. Sasha was fiancé number 2, and she'd failed her driving test about 634 times. And I said, right, I will teach you. We'll buy you a car and I will teach you. Let's get you through this bloody thing. So I bought her a Maestro. I can't remember what model it was. I remember it had saggy roof lining that I pinned up with drawing pins from the office. And she used to drive this Maestro with me. I bought an extra mirror thing from Halfords. And for a period of time, whenever we went out, she drove, because prior to that, she'd only done the normal thing. She'd had, a lesson a week, something like that. And I don't think that works when it comes to learning to drive. And she'd had very little time in a car other than that. And she had no confidence, no familiarity. And, driving is, as far as I'm concerned, all about familiarity. So I boarded the car, and whenever we went out, she drove. And I was quite relentless in certain things. I didn't teach her how to pass a test per se. I taught her how to drive in an everyday sense of driving, how to be safe, how to be safe on the roads, how to be confident, etc., etc., etc. And if she did something wrong, I wouldn't tell her that she'd done it wrong. I'd make her go back to the start and do it all again. God knows how our relationship survived this. And we did, and we carried on doing this. And, I would be really rigorous about some things, like she would park the car with the steering wheel not straight ahead. And I would make her completely do it again and leave it straight, because, stupid little thing, but you you forget that you left the steering wheel with a bit of lock on. You set off thinking that you're going straight ahead and you don't. So, and then you panic a bit because you haven't got that confidence and experience. Stupid things like that. And we did that for as long as it took. She drove hours every day. She became more competent. She became more confident. And the next time she took a test, she passed it. So that was the Maestro. Never owned one other than that. Never really owned one personally as my car. I did have an Allegro called Bluebell, which was the first 5-speed car that I ever owned. And what else did I have? Oh, Minis. I had loads of Minis. Loads of them. I was quite the Mini fan back in the day. Had them all. Bell noses, Clubmans, Travelers. Never had a pickup though. P38 is the second generation, says Tom. 95 onwards. No, I wouldn't consider one of those. I understand that they're problematical in certain issues, but the main reason is they look like a London taxi, not the Fairway. They look like a metro cab. Now, I owned a metro cab and I loved it, but I don't want a Range Rover that looks like a metro cab. So no, I would totally give that a swerve. Yesterday, while I was driving, says Simone, I spotted a long wheelbase Land Rover Series 2, I think it was. Massive thing and my favourite version. I have always hated Land Rovers. Hate them with a passion. I'm sure they're a very worthy vehicle in certain circumstances. I absolutely hate the bloody things. Dear me. Cheeseburger says, my first Rover was an 18-month-old 1-litre Metro on a B plate. Bought it privately. I quite liked it, but my mates took the piss. Found out later it had been clocked. God, do you remember when clocking was the thing? The lads behind me in the compound behind the showroom, they went down for clocking. It was quite a serious thing. They actually went down. That shocked us all. I mean, in the car trade, everybody was a bit of a Jack the Lad then. So the idea of somebody actually going down, that was a bit of a shocker. Oh, Neil, bless you. Oh, well, Neil sent us super thanks, bless his heart. And, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. I won't say that out loud, but they've done a really lovely thing, and I'm really quite moved by that. I might blub in a minute. What's worse? A grown man crying at you, or a grown man getting his socks off and showing you his naked foot? Thank you so much. That means the world. And Cheeseburger goes on. Sold it to a guy in Harborne for his wife to use. 18 months later, he topped his Fucking hell. He topped his wife and drove to the station in the metro to hand himself in. True story. God. Tom says, did you say you're getting another Streetwise Boaty? We've got another one. Not me personally, but me as part of Mustard and Boaty Do Cars. So I've not seen it yet or had my hands on it. This is one that, well, actually, we've got Joe. We've got Joe to thank for that. Joe found this Streetwise local to Mustard, sent myself and Mustard the link. Mustard went almost straight over to have a look at it, didn't buy it, put in an offer. And then the next day spoke to the seller again. They reached a compromise and Mustard went on his bicycle to collect it. Threw his bike in the back of the car, took it back to the yard. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So yeah, we have another Streetwise on the Mustard and Boaty fleet. It's in ignition blue. It's a 3-door. And it's not a bad car, by all accounts. Looking forward to seeing it. What would your peak Streetwise be? What would your ideal Streetwise be? Now, I love Barney. Barney is a fabulous car. And sometimes when you get a really good car, which Barney is, certainly the way he drives is amazing. Good as gold today. We went in Barney today. He was great on fuel. He didn't miss a beat. Fantastic car. But in an ideal world, my Streetwise, I would have a 3-door rather than a 5, and it would be pre-facelift. Both Barney and the new Streetwise, what's it called, Dorothy, they're both facelifted versions. Mustard didn't even realise that there was a pre-facelift Streetwise, but there was. There was, my lovelies, and my preference would be for one of those. I've never even seen a pre-facelift Streetwise in real life. What I do know is different is the dash, obviously. It had the facelift has a version of the facelift dash, as you would expect. The pre-facelift has a version of the pre-facelift dash. And the one thing that you lose in the facelift compared to the pre-facelift, you lose the fresh air vents, which I've only just really understood how they work. And I have to say they are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And in the facelift version, you lose that. And that's a thing that Rover have always had dating back to the Dot. So, and what it is that the two mid face vents on the dash, there's a switch on all Rovers, meaning that you can have those dispensing fresh air, even when all of the other vents in the car are dispensing heated air. And I think that's a great thing. And you lose that in the facelift, which is a great shame. But I'm assuming, I may be wrong, but I'm assuming that the other benefits of a pre-facelift Streetwise, correct me if I'm wrong, would be that they have the Lucas rather than the Pectron immobilizers and BCUs. And I'm assuming that they have an actual boot release button on the boot rather than the electronic remote boot release only, which is a pain in the bum. But there we are. Oh, and Joe says, that's why I was so happy with Paul, as MJ was exactly as described in the advert and sale video. Gave me such confidence driving home in it and that I'd made a good purchase. And that was despite the fact that I wound you up telling you it had a fake MOT, which was obviously a wind-up, because if we had access to fake MOTs, none of my cars would be without one, would they? And 3 of them are. But yeah, I mean, Mustard is many things, but one thing he never is, and I don't think ever could be, is knowingly dishonest. And with MJ, he would have no reason to be. It wasn't even his car. It was his dad's car. I think I'm very fond of Michael Jackson. I think it's a fabulous little car. And I think it was very deserving of a really good home and a safe and secure future. And Joe, I'm loving watching the bits that you're doing with him. I like the fact that you're replacing bits that don't even yet need replacing, really keeping on top of it. That's impressive. And what I'm really looking forward to, Joe, I remember going around the car with you, knowing that you were a professional valeter. And I remember going around the car with you and looking at the bits that were imperfectly cleaned. And I'm really looking forward to an in-depth video of yours where you show a fully valeted MJ. And I completely understand that you'd want to wait until the exhaust is sorted and so on, so that, you know, the video isn't spoiled by him sounding like a bloody banger racer. Now, the problem with exhaust at the moment seems to be catching MJ. Nigel has got a blowy bottom. Ryan has got a blowy bottom. Just seems to be going round. Gosh, look at the time. 2 hours has flown by. I need to go to sleep now, says Simone, to half an hour. Oh, and that was Neil doing that really. Oh, guys, that's really kind of you. Really, really kind of you. Thank you so much. Oh, well, everybody can read it, so I can read it out, can't I? Because they can see it. Stop looking for roof bars for the Freelander, and may have another thing for you. Oh, exciting times! I just can't wait to. I can't wait to hang out with you guys as well, and it's going to be even more fun with Joe there as well. I can't wait to. The restaurant will be brilliant. You'll have to remind me exactly what the itinerary is. Where's it going to be Saturday night at the restaurant? And then you're staying, I think you're staying at this hotel. What night is that? We'll have to do something. Remind me exactly what the itinerary is and we'll arrange stuff. We'll have a fun day at the yard. It's going to be brilliant. Diddly-do. Oh, and they're genuine. Oh, that's even better. Oh, and now he's getting told off by Joe because it was supposed to be a surprise. Oh, they're yours if you swear to never remove your shoe or sock on camera again. I promise. I'm off for dinner. Toodle says cheeseburger. Cheeseburger, if and when you watch this, if you haven't already gone. I'm really grateful that you would give us your time when you're on a holiday in America. It's lovely that you popped in. Good night, Simone. Thank you for coming too. Do I get a percentage of the sale money as I found the car? Only joking, says Joe. You might be joking, but I'm not. I will, when the car is sold, there will be a finder's, not a finder's fee, but a finder's gift for you. Absolutely. 3-door diesel streetwise in ignition blue. Oh, you've lost me there. What are you talking about? A 3-door diesel streetwise and ignition blue. Oh, right. That would be your ideal streetwise. I see. Sorry. And Joe would go for the light green color 5-door. Yeah, and yeah, tell me in case I bought some. That's a fair point because I was looking for some to come up locally, and there were so. Oh, I'm so chuffed. Thank you so much. One with a Stepspeed, says Tom. My sister has one, same dash buttons as an F, but has a 200 dash with no airbag. Oh. Night All, says Ashley. Cheers, Boaty. 7 p.m. for the table Saturday night. Brilliant. Right, that will be butter. Okay. 23rd to 24th, Chesterfield. So that's Saturday to Sunday, yeah? Saturday to Sunday. So that's in Chesterfield. And does that mean on the Saturday night you're staying at that hotel there, the Premier Inn? And then the 24th to the 25th, Rochdale. So then on Sunday, you'll be going to Rochdale and staying in Rochdale on the Sunday night. Oh, okay. So does that mean we could have Sunday lunch together? Or have you got plans? Are you going somewhere? Well, let me know what you're doing on the Sunday before you head up to Rochdale. Or maybe you're going to go early and it's Joe will tell you it's a really nice drive, and there are some interesting places to stop. And I'll be having lunch with you on the Monday anyway, won't I? So, it's going to be brilliant. Yeah, in the hotel down the road from you. Saturday, Sunday. Oh, Sunday you're spending the day with me. Oh, brilliant. Then going to the Premier Inn on Rochdale, ready for Monday morning to. Oh, great. Oh, we can have fun on Sunday as well. Brilliant. Everything's all sorted. Joe's to mine at 9 a.m. Oh, bloody hell. We're changing his window regulator, then coming up in the afternoon, and Sunday lunch would be amazing. Fantastic. Oh, brilliant. Bloody hell, you're leaving at 5 a.m. on the Saturday. Gosh. And you'll be at the... that all sounds amazing. I'm so looking forward to that. And I'm genuinely moved by your generosity. That's going to be a great week. I can't wait for that. I cannot wait for that. Right, darlings. That is it. That is it. It's time to say goodnight to you. Thank you so much for joining me. The 2 hours have just flown. I've really enjoyed spending this time with you. So thank you so much. And I will see you tomorrow night, of course, a little bit later, 11 o'clock. And it will just be for the hour rather than 2. It's out of Joe's 55-mile radius. He's already bricking it. He'll be fine. He got home like a bloody trooper, however long ago it was, 3 or 4 weeks. Guys, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. Please have a safe and peaceful night. Take great care of yourselves. Many thanks to everybody who did the nice things. Mike and Neil and Ashley, thank you so much. Just thank you all for being there. I love catching up with you on a Monday. So yeah, have a safe and peaceful night. Take great care of yourselves. Have the best day that you can tomorrow. And much love to you all. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.